Uh, for a lot of you here, you've helped me a lot throughout my high school career in a lot of different ways, and especially with writing. So I had the chance to do a senior independent study this year, and I could choose whatever topic I wanted, and I chose to do it on writing. One of the reasons I chose writing is because I've loved writing since I was really young, and actually, I forgot to get that out. I have with me one of the first things I ever wrote.
Aww.
It's from first grade. It's called The Lonely Island, and it is probably the worst thing you will ever read. And I'm going to leave that out here for you guys to laugh at me later if you want to. But also, I just wanted to continue to refine my writing skills. And in high school, you have the chance to do that in your English classes, and there's some minor classes you can do that in. But I wanted to take it a step farther and do my own independent study on it. And regardless of what I do in the future, because I'm not really sure at this point, I hope to continue writing in my free time. So my project was focusing on 4 different types of writing, and I broke it up by each quarter. So the first quarter, I focused on reflective writing. The second quarter, I focused on creative writing. The third quarter, I focused on analytical writing. And the last quarter, I focused on persuasive writing. Quarter 1 was reflective writing, and so my primary focus was journalism, but more specifically, it was editorials. So what my process was to first research famous types of writing. So I would search famous editorials, like really well-written ones, to learn how they're written. And then once I did that, I would look up how to write your own editorial or short story, or for all of them, I'd do that. And then once I read examples of good writing in this style, and then searched how to write your own version of that writing, I would then produce my own work. So my editorial for the reflective writing quarter was called We Are the 1%, and it basically compares how the middle class views the upper class to how people that are poverty-stricken and the lower class view the middle class. And my goal in writing this editorial was to incite activism and volunteerism. My specific goal was for the middle class because they are the largest audience for editorials. During quarter 2, I focused on creative writing, and this was a short story. So I read famous short stories, and I love doing that. And then I wrote a story called Room 306. Basically, without giving anything away, it revolves around an old man that's kind of angry and like just your stereotypical old man. And he meets a kid at the hospital when he's waiting at the bedside of his dying wife. And so my goal in writing this story was to incorporate a sense of mystery and confusion about what's actually going on in the plot. And then that comes in at the end when it ties it all together, and it's kind of like a surprise ending, figuring out what was actually going on. For quarter 3, I did analytical writing, and this was mostly literary analysis. So for my book that I chose Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead, and one of the reasons I chose Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead was because she has a contest that they do every year, and in 10th grade I actually entered the contest with her book Anthem. So I decided to enter it again this year, but another reason I picked The Fountainhead was because I really like Ayn Rand's style. It's very different from anything I've ever read. She has a philosophy called objectivism, and it's really hard to explain, but essentially it's sort of like a personal ideology where you live for yourself and not for other people, but it's much more complex than that in the books. And so I wrote a piece about The Fountainhead based on the contest, and it was called What Rourke Couldn't Conceive. So the prompt basically asked, was Howard Rourke, the main character of The Fountainhead, right in his argument for selfishness over altruism? And what I did was, instead of just saying yes or no, I said that he was right in his intentions, but his argument wasn't necessarily valid because he wasn't truly arguing for selfishness over altruism. And I did this primarily because that's what I believed, but also secondarily, I felt like it truly encapsulated Howard Rourke's philosophy, because I wasn't just sticking with the prompt's confines. I was kind of taking the prompt, and instead of just saying yes or no, I was saying yes but or no but. And then for quarter 4, I did persuasive writing. So I focused on a speech, and I've actually taken 2 speech classes while I've been in high school. I took a speech class in 10th grade, and then I'm actually taking dual credit speech this year. So I wrote a speech about genetic modification of babies, and this is currently a controversial topic in the scientific community. And my goal in writing this speech is to persuade my audience that genetic modification in babies is actually a good thing, despite what its stigma is. So for this quarter, I am giving the speech today for my final presentation. So I'm just going to go ahead and switch over to my other PowerPoint. Captain America franchise, a man named Steve Rogers is transformed from a scrawny kid into a super soldier with super strength when a scientist edits his genetics. Although this might seem far-fetched, it might not be as far away as you'd think. As I speak, scientists around the world are working on a new gene editing technology, one that would allow us to edit human embryos. When this was first announced, people were outraged. They claimed that it was unnatural, that it was dangerous, that it was uncontrollable, and that it was unethical. In fact, I too once thought many of these things. But after doing extensive research, I've come to the conclusion that this technology is not necessarily bad. In fact, it could be used to benefit the lives of thousands of people.
Mr. Donnelly, please dial 1256. Mr. Donnelly, 1256.
Today I'm going to explain what this technology is, why it can be safe, how it will be ethical, and why we should use it. First, in order to recognize the benefits of this technology, it is important to understand what it is. A lot of people are opposed to the idea of gene editing without knowing what it actually is. Some common misconceptions include that it's painful, that treatment takes too long, and that it involves unnatural chemicals. This technology is called CRISPR-Cas9, and it is not painful, treatment does not take very long, and it does not involve unnatural chemicals. Essentially what it is RNA, which is basically a single-stranded DNA, and a protein. The protein cuts DNA, and what happens is scientists create an RNA strand that matches a gene in the body, and then when they put the RNA and the protein in your body, the RNA finds that gene, and then the protein can make edits and remove mutations from that gene. So this process is actually not painful. It would be treated as a surgical procedure so the people involved would not feel any pain. And the treatment doesn't take very long. In fact, once the RNA and the protein are put into the body, it takes effect in about 1 to 2 days. And it does not involve any unnatural chemicals. RNA and protein are integral components to all living things, and they're completely natural. Second, one of the most pressing concerns of this technology is whether or not it will be safe for use on humans. Although this technology currently has some issues, the issues are being quickly addressed and resolved by international scientists. During preliminary trial runs, this technology caused something called off-target mutations. And what off-target mutations are is that the proteins made changes where it wasn't supposed to make changes. And while this sounds scary, since then scientists have made dramatic improvements to the technology, making it much safer. And some of these improvements include changing the protein so it's more accurate and using 2 RNA strands instead of 1, so that both RNA strands have to match the right gene, and this reduces the chance of error. According to Wired, Harvard geneticist George Church has suggested that with these improvements, the error rate of this technology is down to just 1 error for every 300 trillion bases of DNA. Next, once the technology can be accepted as safe, critics tend to focus on the ethics of the technology. The 2 major ethical dilemmas of this technology are who will use it and how it will be used. Due to the nature of this technology, it can be abused and used by the wrong people for the wrong reasons. And this led researchers to one irreversible conclusion, that if we were to use this technology, it must be clearly and strictly regulated. With proper regulation, we can restrict the use of this technology to established and reputable medical organizations for purposes that are clearly outlined and approved. According to News Medical, the regulation of this technology should strive to address unshaped safety mechanisms, augmented risk of multi-generational side effects, ethical hurdles regarding human embryos, as well as any equity concerns. While some might still find this technology unethical and wrong, a regulatory framework addressing these issues would assure that the technology is used for the purpose it was intended, to give preborn babies with life-threatening diseases a chance at life. Finally, this technology is not something that would only kind of improve lives. This technology that is something that, if safe and if available, should be used to improve the lives of thousands of people. The goal-oriented purpose of this technology is to remove mutations that cause life-threatening diseases in preborn babies, as well as to give life to embryos with mutations that cause them to be dead before birth. Cystic fibrosis, Down syndrome, sickle cell disease, and Tay-Sachs disease are just 4 of the many genetic disorders that can be improved or fixed completely using this technology. According to New Scientist magazine, in 2015, a 1-year-old British baby girl named Lila became the first person in the world to be saved by gene editing. She was diagnosed with leukemia, which is an aggressive form of bone cancer that has low survival rates. After chemotherapy and bone marrow transplant failed to work, her parents were told that there was nothing more they could do. The hospital, however, then said that they would approve an experimental drug treatment involving gene editing. Here's her story.
new gene engineering technology has for the first time saved the life of a British baby who had
Sorry, guys.
The new gene engineering technology has for the first time saved the life of a British baby who had long suffered from fatal cancer. Parents see this as a miracle and are so delighted to have made the right decision to go ahead with the treatment.
We didn't see it as a tough decision. We saw it as the only decision. There was no other option.